Okay, hi guys. I am back with a new video, and this time, as promised, by the end of the month, although I'm a little bit early, I had promised you that I'm going to discuss the approach to leukemias. It is written acute leukemia over here, but I have discussed a general approach to leukemias, not acute or chronic. And this is just an overview since it was requested by a few postgraduates. So I have made it just like an overview for them. I am not going to be discussing too much about the various WHO subclassifications, nor will I be discussing in detail about individual leukemia and how to go about how to diagnose it. Pardon me for my bad health. I am not able to speak very loudly today. So what I'm going to be doing is giving you a general overview of how you should approach leukemias. As I had said in the last tutorial, I am not going to be just jumping from anemias to leukemias in the middle because that is going to break the flow of the lectures. I am finishing with hemolytic. I have prepared a few lectures for IBMFs, then comes infectious diseases, and then I come to leukemias. So the individual leukemias and important points to diagnose them, we are going to be taking when I take up individual leukemias. But I'm going to give you a general overview today of how to approach a leukemia, what are the tests available, what is the difference between a lymphoblast and a myeloblast, what is CLL, CML, ALL, AML. The in-depth details about various cytogenetic abnormalities in AML, various other types of ALLs like ALL with pH positivity, etc. All that I'm going to be taking when I take up the individual leukemias. Fine. So let's move on. Okay, so most of what I have taken is from a paper which I have referenced in the end, and of course from the net. And I'll be discussing what my practical experience when dealing with cases of leukemias and not lymphomas, but leukemias in general today. So this paper talks a lot about CLL, that is chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and what they have given, this is a clinical recommendation mainly for CLL, but as well as some part of it is for general leukemias. So let's start with CLL and the clinical recommendation there, where they say that a CLL should be suspected in an older adult and there should be marked elevation of WBC count with an enlarged liver or spleen, as they've said over here. However, I have had in my practical experience cases where there is some lymphocytosis or marked degree of lymphocytosis, but your TLC is normal and rest everything is normal and the patient is asymptomatic. And on getting these cases worked up, like the patient might just come for fever, mild anemia, or something else, and it's a chance finding. Getting these patients worked up for CLL, they came out to be cases of CLL. And this is a practical experience of around, I think it was a 50-year-old female. I mean, in no way would anyone suspect that she had CLL. And then she was kept on follow-up. We didn't even give her B plus R. That is the therapy that patients with CLL used to get when I was working previously. There was no need to give it to her, and she was kept on follow-up. Having said that, of late, a new entity known as MBL, monoclonal B-cell lymphocytosis, which is somewhere between a normal or a lympholeucomoid reaction and a CLL, is there, where there is monoclonality in the B cells. There is some morphological resemblance of the B cells with what you will get in CLL, but there is some yet there is difference. It is a pre-CLL kind of a condition, not a full-blown cancer. So these entities need to be kept in mind when we are diagnosing a CLL. So what the author has written here is not a absolute, but it is applicable to a large part of the population. Second point that the author states is that when evaluating a patient with leukocytosis, common causes such as infection, inflammation, and stress response should be considered. A peripheral blood smear should be obtained in patients with a WBC count of 20,000 per microliter. And when other findings like anemia, thrombocytopenia, cytosis, or organomegaly is associated. So this is a very general point. You must have read both in CLL or CML there are leukemoid reactions, which can be lymphoid leukemoid or myeloid leukemoid. And then there's a cutoff to diagnose something as just a simple leukemoid reaction post-infection or a CML. Same goes for CLL. So this is a very general point that if you're getting leukocytosis with anemia, thrombocytopenia, organomegaly, or just plain leukocytosis, you should get a peripheral smear checked. Then, of course, patients with early CLL might not present with anything or maybe asymptomatic, as I've already told you. In patients with leukemia, fever and neutropenia warrants evaluation for infection. Very commonly, when you give a chemotherapeutic agent to the patient and then you have to evaluate that patient, we go for ANC, the absolute neutrophil count, and then there are cutoffs for different. If I might be not very correct right now, but 500 is a cutoff, and in some lymphomas, 800 is the cutoff. So if the neutrophil count falls below 500 or 800, then you need to give that, follow up that patient for infections, give him empirical antibiotic therapy if there are infections, and you might need to give that patient GCSF therapy when the counts are not catching up and you need to give the patient second dose of chemo. So there is the importance of ANC. Leukemia survivors are at increased risk of secondary malignancies which are caused by chemotherapeutic agents themselves. So all this I'll be dealing in detail with when I take up leukemias. What are the tests available for a patient of leukemia? They've started with the bone marrow aspirate or biopsy. Before that, what is available is a PS and a CBC. Fine, with this you get some, when you know that on a CBC that this case will come out to be leukemia, you send the patient for PS, you get LFTs and KFT, LDH, viral markers, and these basic panels done, and then you go for a bone marrow biopsy and aspirate examination to collect material to be sent for flow cytogenetics as well as morphological evaluation. Molecular testing, Philadelphia, very, very common in not only CML now, but even in acute leukemias, in clonal abnormalities like MDS, MPN. WHO has progressed a lot with the molecular part of it. In details, I'll be dealing with in separate leukemia lectures that I take, but for all the postgraduates who had asked me about it, so how do you go about clinically? A patient comes to you, the patient is presenting with any abnormality in the CBC parameters like anemia, thrombocytopenia, leukocytosis. Sometimes you get a subleukemic leukemia. The count is normal or reduced with lymphocytosis, and then you get blasts and PS. When I taken the class on CBC, that I'd shown you that the charts, the histograms are easily they easily point towards presence of abnormal cells. If you see the scatter plot for granulocytes, you can see a straight rise if there are blasts. So all those things where you have to be experienced enough to interpret that. Then you go for a PS examination after a CBC. You call the patient for a bone marrow examination. You take samples from the bone marrow. By the time you've examined the PS, you know what kind of flow you need to send, what panel you need to send, and then you send that, you send cytogenetics if available, and then you get your results and you start treating. Of course, there are some empirical treatment and there are some basic treatment like antiviral and antifungal therapy. If the count is too high, then you can give febuxostat, which will decrease the once the cell lyses. A lot of uric acid accumulates in the body. A condition known as tumor lysis syndrome develops. So febuxostat, and later on for tumor lysis syndrome, clinicians give something known as rasburicase. So all that helps in the initial management of the patient. The patient might need blood. If the patient is bleeding, the patient might need platelets. So that is how you approach a case till you get your flow and cytogenetic results. So when the patient comes to you with leukocytosis, it is mentioned what the count should be. You have to check the CBC, as I had said, get all the rest of the investigations done because chemotherapeutic agents are very, very toxic. So LFT, KFT status you need to know. And then you go for the peripheral smear examination. If it is a monocyte predominant population with leukocytosis, the first thing I always tell you, before thinking it to be rule out infections because infections are more common in our population. If it's a monocyte predominant and you think it's an infection, you can rule out viral infections, chronic infections, tuberculosis, TBs, and connective tissue disorders. Eosinophilic means there's allergy, parasite, or some connective tissue disorder. Neutrophil, bacterial infection, stress response, splenic sequestration, etc. Lymphocyte, again, viral, EMV, CMV, EBV, pertussis, even in typhoid you might get it. So and then basophilia for TB or viral infections. Then if any of the following are present, obtain a peripheral smear. That is, you see the leukocytosis kind of anemia, if there are blasts or not, if there are parasites in the smear, correlate it with what your clinical finding is, and then move ahead. Of course, if there are increased number of normal, there's an entity known as chronic neutrophilic leukemia. Part of CML initially, now used in MDS MPN now. So you have to be very careful in what you are seeing. Some if there's left shift with 50,000 count, the polymorphs look okay, that toxic granules and vacuoles, you know it is infective. If there is a lot of left shift with myelo count is around 1 lakh. There are not many toxic granules, some disperses, and you get basophilia, then you know that it could be CML. Fine. Then, of course, the more the left shift is pointing towards genesis of the precursors, the more number of mononuclear cells you get with high NC ratio. You get big cells, maybe a nucleoli, very scant cytoplasm, and high NC ratio. That leads you towards a diagnosis of malignancy. Having said that, viral infections have a lot of mimickers, EBV, etc., have a lot of cells which mimic a blast. Initially, now the WHO has changed it. They used to categorize the EBV infection into Downit cell type 1, type 2, type 3, blastoid, monocytoid, and plasmacytoid. These were the kind of variations in the cells that you used to get. Now, a viral suppression will lead to pancytopenia with atypical kind of cells in your peripheral smear. You might call it leukemia, subleukemic, leukemic. Be very, very careful. Here comes the importance of clinical correlation, where you look for any organomegaly, look for the duration of fever. Ask for any treatment outside, which can, in India, it is very common. A patient before coming to a doctor goes to a temple or a masjid or a baba or something like that, and gets those local quackery induced medications that they give. Steroid is a very common medication with all those babas and small dispensaries in villages they give you. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia is one leukemia which responds beautifully to steroid. So once you get maybe a quack gives you a dose of steroid, the child responds to it. So when you get the peripheral smear, what you will get is lymphocytosis, but the lymphocytes will look very, very mature and non-scary. The other counts might have returned to normal, wo blood chadha deta hai and all that. Now this becomes a pitfall. Similarly, when there is viral infection, they also tend to treat it with a steroid. And steroid is known as a golden drug for a reason, because anything responds to steroid quickly. But in the longer run, the response goes away if not titrated properly, and a lot of side effects develop. To a pathologist, I had taken a lecture on post-chemotherapy changes in the marrow. What becomes a problem is that these drugs cause either dyspoetic changes, or they make the blast look very, very normal and mature, or they might confuse you with if it is a viral and becomes dyspoetic, it might confuse you with a leukemia. So for a pathologist, it is very, very important to know the clinical history of that patient before you label something as an acute leukemia. Having said that, most of the cases you're going to get very, very apparent looking blasts with high counts, and you can in one go ahead and say, okay, fine, this is leukemia. So here you go, marked increase in normal. Acha, if the lymphocytes look normal, then CLL is one of the possibilities. So this is a general view of, and then if it is a myeloid blast, you think it is chronic, you get all the series of myeloid lineages, you go for a BCR ABL by RT-PCR. If you think it's only blast, more than 80% blast, more than 20% blast, you go for cytogenetic evaluation. AML is in AML, it is very important with flow. So this is how you go ahead. So if it's a ALL, you see lymphoid blast, common in children, you will get fever, lethargy, bleeding, musculoskeletal pain, hepatosplenomegaly, and lymphadenopathy. If it is, and the younger the patient, the better the survival. AML, you'll see blasts with rods and granules. You can get bleeding. AML morphologically has 7 types, and each type has a specific presentation, which I'll take as I go ahead in the lectures. Again, younger the person, better the survival. CLL, more common in older age group, and they are 5,000 is the cutoff. More than that with lymphocytosis greater than 50%. And CML, BACR, ABL1 fusion with splenomegaly. Fibrosis needs to be ruled out, although with the advent of TKI and newer TKI therapy, tyrosine kinase inhibitor therapy, presence of fibrosis now is not prognostically important. Initially it was. Poor prognosis of fibrosis was present, but even a fibrotic case responds very well with TKI. In CML and MPNs, what is important is to differentiate between individual MPN, that is CML, then ET, then PV, then PMF. So individually they might present with overlapping features. So that is more important. Okay, this chart is given in Washington Manual of Surgery. Why I like this is because in acute look, as the cells mature, there is some mutation at one point, and जहाँ पे maturity stop होती है और वहाँ पे mutation हुआ, तो वो immature cell proliferate करके it becomes a acute leukemia. So the flow markers depend on what stage the maturity stopped at and those cells proliferated. So if it is a progenitor B cell leukemia in acute ALL, then the markers that you will get positive are TDT, DR, CD34 and 19. More so TDT and DR, HLA-DR and CD34. 19 and 20 and 10 are more of maturity markers. So जितना आगे जाके mature भी lymphocyte का leukemia होगा, उसका response अच्छा होता है, and you'll get CD19 and 20 and 23 and these markers positive. The more immature, and of course then you can get, if it's a plasma cell lesion, then immunoglobulins and light chains and heavy chains positive. The more immature the leukemia, you'll get TDT, HLA-DR and CD34 positivity. Same applies for T. CD3, 5, 7, 2, these are more maturity markers, while TDT and 34 and HLA-DR are immaturity markers. Also, in T cell, whether it is an alpha beta abnormality or delta theta abnormality, all these things matter, because WHO has broken up T cell leukemias, lymphomas as per this T cell receptors also. Similarly, what kind of maturity immunoglobulin develops defines the kind of plasma cell myeloma that is going to develop in a B cell lesion. Of course, NHL, PL, let's see. Similarly, when I teach you lymphomas, you will study that if you go to a lymph node, then whether the lymphoma is a germinal center, a pre-germinal center area, or a post-germinal center mature lymphoma. So this chart is given in Washington Manual. If you remember this, then you can at least tell what flow markers will come positive. So that is why I like this chart. Again, I repeat, in comprehension, I can say immature TDT, HLA-DR, CD34. Mature, if it is B cell, CD19, CD20, and if it is myeloma, then immunoglobulins. If it is a T cell lesion, then 2, 5, 7, and alpha, beta, delta, theta, CD4 and CD8. Okay. Okay, this is a chart just showing key stem cells. There's a lymphoid arm and a myeloid arm and what develops from that. Now, what is important, someone asked me, was differentiate between a myeloid and a lymphoid blast. This is a myeloid blast. The chromatin appears fine. There is good amount of cytoplasm, and then if I might rub this out, you are going to see our rods. Fine. So this thing over here, this thin rod over here, these two, these are our rods, which are abnormal crystals getting deposited. You know that myeloid cell has granules and other things. So abnormal synthesis of granules forms crystallization of these granules into rod forms. Compare this cell with, say, this cell. Over here, what you see, there's a large cell with high NC ratio, very scant cytoplasm, little opened up chromatin, and cytoplasmic vacuoles. Here you can see very scant cytoplasm with something like this. This is looking like a hand mirror that old queens used to keep. Again, very scant cytoplasm and cytoplasmic vacuole and no nucleoli. And even though the nucleoli is not very conspicuous here, mostly you get 2 to 3, as in over here. See, you can see over here 2 nucleoli. Here you see nothing but dense chromatin, sometimes one over a very small nucleoli. So that is how you differentiate between a lympho and a myeloblast. They are larger, chromatin is fine, nuclear membrane is fine, 2 to 5 nucleoli. One of my professors used to tell me a cell is recognized by the company it keeps. So when there is some problem in the myeloid lineage, you won't get the mature cells of that lineage. You'll get very few. Mostly you'll get lymphocytes because that other lineage is fine. Similarly, it applies to when a lymphoid lineage goes, you might get some cells of myeloid lineage. However, most of the cases that we get are full-blown acute loops. It is very, very rare to catch something at a very early stage. So you won't get any lineage in that case. So you have to just identify by rods, granules, nucleoli, and the cut type of chromatin. Okay. Then again, there's something called blast equivalence in WHO, where the WHO has called promonocytes and monoblasts. Even in and ये megakaryoblast and erythroblast, they are not myeloid or lymphoid blasts, but if present, they can be counted into blasts and are known as blast equivalents. They are as bad as a blast. So here I have got image. A very very big problem you have is in recognizing monoblasts. They are large. The cytoplasm is just like that of a myeloblast, but it is palish bluish with vacuoles. So it has some property of a lymphoblast and some property of a myeloblast. With if you match it with a myeloblast, the chromatin of a myeloblast is fine. That of a monoblast is lacy. If you see like a lace or a tissue paper, like okay, the cytoplasm is same as that of a myeloblast, that is ample amount or moderate amount, but the color is that of sky grayish bluish. Okay, a myeloblast, they will be a little pinkish bluish, and a lymphoblast will be like ink. एरिथ्रोब्लास्ट जितना नहीं, but थोड़ा सा dark होता है उसका. And you'll get cytoplasmic vacuoles like this. You might get few nucleoli. And a promonocyte will have more cytoplasm but a very irregular cleaved, जैसे कि रुमाल एक दूसरे के ऊपर मोड़ दिया गया हो, वैसा nucleus with nuclear vacuolization. This is a proper monocyte with lobes and vacuolation. More than 50% is nucleus. Here you see there is a big cytoplasm, but there are a lot of foldings. ये उतनी फोल्डेड नहीं है, ये सिर्फ लोबेटेड हो रही है, ये फोल्ड हो रही है, लग रहा है कि कपड़े जैसे दुपट्टा एक दूसरे के ऊपर फोल्ड कर दिया हो. So immature monocytes, promonocytes and monoblasts, if you see in a smear, be very careful. See, this is a myeloblast, this is a monoblast, looking similar, but look at the amount of cytoplasm and vacuolation. Okay, and here you can see a myeloblast with rod. This is some sort of a cupping over here. Okay, this is erythroblast, gigantoblast, CDA में भी मिलते हैं, which is not a leukemia. This is a megakaryoblast. Okay, so these are features. If the patient has CNL, he should be monitored for any extra symptoms developing, counts increasing. Excuse me. Vaccination should be done. Pneumococcal vaccine, especially अगर इनमें स्प्लेनेक्टमी कर दी जाती है तो कैप्सुलेटेड वायरसेस के अगेंस्ट वैक्सीन जरूर दिया जाता है, because spleen is a part of the immune system. There is a lot of immunity going on against capsulated viruses. So that immunity suffers when the spleen goes. So we give them vaccines, and of course a refer to eco and cardiological reference जरूरी है, because इनकी treatment होती है B+R, the chemotherapy that is given to them, and that B+R is cardiotoxic in some cases. CML, you know, we give imatinib or other TKIs, and a proper follow-up with every 6 monthly RT-PCR, which is quantitative, needs to be done. Here we look for morphological remission, cytogenetic and molecular remission. Okay. Acute lymphoblastic leukemias, properly we have to verify with, if we are thinking that it is spreading, we have to go for the flow, we have to go for, if needed, cytogenetic profile, the biochemical profile of the patient because he is on treatment. If a hematopoietic stem cell transplant is being planned, then accordingly we need to investigate the patient. Any viral infection, all the viral markers are ruled out. Even sometimes radiological investigations are necessary to कि fungal infection तो नहीं develop कर रहा है. Echo is done as a part of the chemotherapy profile that we need to give the patient. एंड कम से कम 10-12 साल का फॉलोअप रहता है इसमें. AML वैसे तो बहुत अच्छा सर्वाइवल नहीं है इसका, but there are lots and lots NCCN के guidelines हैं. You all can go and read if you're interested. There are number of therapies for cases of AML, because AML sometimes comes with MDS also. So there's Desitas and azacitidine, and then there are other therapy modalities also which you can read. The protocol for ALL is BFM 95. Then lymphomas come. There's a SMILE protocol for NKT cell lymphomas. Then ABVD is there for Hodgkin's lymphoma. So there are multiple treatment protocols for different leukemias which you need to go ahead and read. This is the paper by Amanda S. Davis. You can read this and you'll get an overview of how to go about with the case of leukemia. These are my references. So, mota mota again, I'll recapitulate. When a patient comes to you in the OPD, you go ahead, take the clinical history, look for organomegaly, prescribe the basic investigations, that is CBC, LFT, KFT, serum LDH, viral markers. If you feel that the CBC counts are high, you can get it done at that moment. As an emergency stat CBC, you go ahead, start the antiviral, antifungal, anti-hemolysis therapy to reduce the load, that is for febuxostat and etc. You admit the patient, you go for a bone marrow, send the samples for cytogenetics and molecular if required, examine the PS, the bone marrow smears, and the bone marrow biopsy. Each leukemia has something specific that you have to look for, which I'll take in future. And then you start the therapy. And then comes the post-therapy monitoring of these cases, where you are going to get bone marrows at specific time points as per the therapy protocol, where you might need to send the sample from flow cytometry for MRD, that is minimal residual disease. I've taken it, and you can go ahead and read post chemo, see that lecture on post chemo marrows to understand what MRD is. Then later on I'll tell you what hematogones are, where you encounter them. One lecture I'll take on that, and how you confuse them with a blast in a case of uh, pediatric bone marrow recovering from viral infection or bone marrow suppression or aplastic anemia, or a case of leukemia post chemotherapy in recovery phase. So I hope this helps. This has been a long lecture. I have not taken each leukemia in detail. Please ask me questions on Messenger for whoever who has doubts in this. And the next time I'll come with a cytopath lecture. And once I finish the benign hematopathology, I'll be starting with the malignant hematopathology. So thank you and have a great day.